Welcome to Commercial Property Deep Dive by Eureka Business Group. In each episode, we break down the essentials of managing commercial properties with expert advice and actionable tips. Let's dive right in.
Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going deep on a topic that you all been asking about for a while now.
Yeah, really interesting stuff today.
Yeah, so we're diving into industrial property management.
Very cool.
And for this one, we're looking at an article. It's from a Texas commercial property management company.
Okay.
And it's called The Benefits of Professional Property Management for Industrial Spaces.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So I guess just to kind of set the stage here.
Sure.
When we think about property management, maybe we think about, an apartment building.
Right.
Or, some smaller scale properties.
Yeah.
But industrial property management is a whole different beast.
It really is, and you'd be surprised how much specialized knowledge goes into keeping those properties thriving.
Yeah, so I'm picturing, these giant warehouses, factories.
Right, exactly.
I guess my initial thought is that it's mostly about you're just making sure the building is standing and, collecting rent checks.
Right, keeping the lights on.
But this article highlights tenant relationships as being really important.
Oh, absolutely.
So what is it about the industrial space that makes those relationships so crucial?
Well, you've got to remember that the needs of an industrial tenant are very different from, say, a residential tenant.
Okay, yeah.
We're talking about businesses that often have heavy machinery. They have specific safety protocols. They might need to reconfigure their space on a dime to accommodate, a new production line or something like that.
Right.
So a good property manager really acts as a liaison, smoothing things over between the tenant and, say, contractors, making sure everyone's happy and, business keeps running smoothly.
So it's almost like having a dedicated problem solver on your side.
Yeah.
Someone who can navigate all those complexities.
Right. And that actually, it kind of bleeds over into the financial side of things, too.
Okay.
Because, beyond just the basic, collecting rent and paying bills.
Yeah.
There's a lot more to it. There's creating budgets, of course. But it's also about, spotting potential cost savings.
Like what kind of things?
Well, for example, they might be able to negotiate better rates with waste disposal companies. Or, find energy-efficient solutions that benefit both the tenant and the owner.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, so it's not just about managing expenses. It's about being proactive and finding ways to reduce them.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've talked about tenant relationships. We've talked about finances.
Yeah.
Let's talk about maintenance.
Sure.
I'm picturing, again, these massive facilities.
Huge roofs, complex electrical systems.
Yeah, what are some of the unique challenges when it comes to maintaining those kinds of spaces?
Well, you hit the nail on the head, those giant roofs, intricate electrical systems. And then you can't forget about fire suppression systems.
Oh, right, yeah.
Built for industrial scale emergencies.
Of course.
So a good property manager is constantly on top of inspections, preventative maintenance.
Yeah.
It's all about preventing those major headaches down the line that could cost you a fortune.
Right, so it's less about reacting to disasters and more about preventing them in the first place.
Absolutely. And there's another layer to this, too.
Okay.
Staying up to date on industry standards.
Oh, that's a good point.
Yeah.
Because what might have been considered safe 5 years ago
Right. Exactly.
might not be today.
And, OSHA, for example.
OSHA, yeah, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration.
Right. They're constantly updating regulations, and a savvy property manager knows this and makes sure the property is always meeting those standards.
That makes a lot of sense, especially when you're dealing with, potentially hazardous materials or heavy machinery.
Exactly. You want to keep everyone safe and avoid any potential legal issues.
Right. And that actually brings us to the legal side of things, which I'll admit, doesn't always sound like the most thrilling topic.
Right. It's not the most glamorous part of the job.
But I have a feeling it's pretty crucial in this context.
Oh, absolutely. Critical. Think about things like zoning laws. You can't just set up, a metal stamping factory.
Right. Yeah. In a residential area?
Yeah, that would be a problem.
Or, environmental regulations, improper waste disposal could land an owner in a lot of trouble.
So a good property manager essentially acts as that legal buffer, making sure everything's above board.
Exactly. So you don't have to worry about fines or worse, lawsuits.
So they're protecting your investment from potential legal pitfalls.
That's a good way to put it.
Okay, so we've talked about tenant relationships, finances, maintenance, legal compliance. Now let's shift gears a bit and talk about finding tenants for these industrial spaces.
Sure.
The article uses this interesting phrase, matchmaking.
Okay.
What do you think they mean by that?
Well, I think it speaks to the fact that, these spaces are so specialized.
Yeah.
It's not just about filling an empty space.
Right.
It's about finding the right tenant whose needs align with the property's features.
So you wouldn't want to put, a small bakery in a giant warehouse with loading docks?
Exactly. That would be a mismatch. Okay, so the property manager is kind of like a real estate matchmaker, carefully considering the needs of both sides.
Exactly. And that involves a lot of market research.
Okay.
Understanding industry trends, identifying potential tenants,
Mm-hmm.
doing background checks, even negotiating lease terms that work for everyone.
So it's about creating that win-win situation.
Right, where the tenant thrives and the property owner enjoys a stable long-term investment.
That makes a lot of sense. But we're not just talking about finding tenants, are we?
No.
We're also talking about making the most of those massive spaces once they're occupied.
Mm.
I'm thinking about how you efficiently fit everything into a warehouse. It's got to be a puzzle in itself.
Yeah, it's another key skill, optimizing space utilization.
So what does that look like in practice?
Well, a tenant might need to reconfigure their layout to accommodate growth,
Okay.
or they might need to maximize storage capacity to streamline their operations.
Right.
A good property manager can help with that. They can work with the tenant to design efficient layouts.
Wow. So they're almost like an industrial scale interior designer, but with the focus on functionality and efficiency.
That's a good way to put it.
That's fascinating. You mentioned earlier the importance of staying up to date on industry standards.
Right.
And I'm thinking about sustainability.
Yeah.
Is that something that comes into play with industrial properties as well?
Absolutely. In fact, it's becoming increasingly important.
Okay.
We're seeing a huge push toward eco-friendly practices in industrial real estate.
Like what kind of things?
Well, it could be something as simple as upgrading to energy-efficient lighting
Okay.
or optimizing HVAC systems.
HVAC, that's the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, right?
Right, those big systems that control the building's climate.
Mm-hmm.
And then, even things like implementing rainwater harvesting systems or solar panels.
Wow. So you're saying industrial properties are getting a green makeover.
Yeah, you could say that it's a trend that's gaining momentum, and for good reason.
So it's not just about being environmentally responsible, it's also about, potential cost savings.
Exactly. Not only is it good for the planet, but it can also translate into significant cost savings for the owner and make the property more attractive to environmentally conscious tenants.
Okay, I'm starting to see the bigger picture here.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about maintaining a building.
Mm-hmm.
It's about understanding complex systems, staying ahead of trends, and constantly finding ways to improve and add value.
Absolutely. And speaking of staying ahead of the curve,
Yeah.
the article mentions how technology is playing a role in all of this.
That's something I definitely want to dig into more. So let's talk about that after a quick break.
Sounds good.
We'll be right back to continue our deep dive into the world of industrial property management.
All right. As we've been talking about all this, I'm really struck by just how much a property manager needs to juggle.
It's true. We've talked about communication, negotiation, finance, legal expertise, even a bit of psychology when it comes to those tenant relationships.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And it seems like reading between the lines of this article, a good property manager needs to be a master problem solver too.
Absolutely. Unexpected issues can crop up at any time,
Right.
especially in these large, complex properties.
Yeah.
Maybe a piece of equipment malfunctions, a storm damages the roof, or there's a sudden shift in the market that impacts occupancy rates.
A lot of curveballs.
Yeah. So they need to stay calm, under pressure, think on their feet, and find creative solutions.
So it sounds like they need to be equal parts detective diplomat and, dare I say, superhero.
That's a good way to put it. Someone who can swoop in and save the day when things go wrong.
Exactly. And, we often take these industrial spaces for granted.
Yeah.
We drive by them on the highway. We order products that magically appear on our doorstep. But we rarely think about the complex operations happening within those buildings.
It's true.
It's easy to forget that these spaces are the backbone of so much of our economy.
Right.
And behind the scenes, property managers are playing this vital role in keeping those operations running smoothly.
They really are the unsung heroes of the industrial world, ensuring that businesses can thrive and property owners can enjoy peace of mind knowing that their investments are well managed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I want to circle back to something we touched on earlier, sustainability.
Okay.
The article highlights how property managers can implement those eco-friendly practices that are good for the environment and the bottom line.
Yeah, it's a win-win.
But, I think some people might think that going green is expensive and not really worth it for an industrial property. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think there's a misconception that sustainability is all about these big, expensive initiatives.
Yeah.
But even small changes can make a difference.
Like what?
Something as simple as switching to LED lighting
Yep.
can
Yeah.
significantly reduce energy consumption and lower utility bills. And when you're dealing with a massive warehouse, those savings can really add up.
Yeah, that's a good point. And, we also have to think about the long-term benefits.
Right.
If energy costs continue to rise,
Hmm.
having an energy-efficient property becomes even more valuable.
Exactly. It's a smart investment, not an added expense.
And I imagine it can also be a selling point for tenants.
Absolutely. More and more tenants are looking for environmentally conscious spaces.
Right.
So it can be a real differentiator when you're trying to attract and retain those high-quality tenants.
It seems like sustainability is becoming less of a nice-to-have and more of a must-have in this market.
I think you're right. It's no longer just a trend. It's an integral part of responsible property management.
And speaking of trends, let's dive back into the world of technology.
All right.
I'm still buzzing about all those innovations we discussed earlier.
Me too. It's really exciting to see how technology is streamlining operations and creating these new possibilities.
But, do you think there's a risk that technology could replace the human element altogether?
That's an interesting question.
I mean, will property managers become obsolete?
I think it's important to remember that technology is a tool.
Okay.
It can automate tasks and provide valuable insights, but it can't replace those human skills that are so essential for effective property management.
So things like building relationships,
Yeah, I so.
negotiating contracts,
Right.
understanding the nuances of local markets.
Those all require human intuition and expertise.
So it's more about finding that balance between leveraging technology and maintaining that human touch.
I think that's the key.
Yeah, I like that. Now, before we move on, I want to touch on one final point that's been a recurring theme throughout our discussion: peace of mind.
Okay.
It seems like hiring a professional property manager is ultimately about giving owners the freedom to focus on other things, knowing their property is in good hands.
That's a major benefit for sure. Owning an industrial property can be a demanding and time-consuming endeavor.
Yeah, no doubt.
So a property manager takes on those day-to-day responsibilities, allowing the owner to focus on their core business or simply enjoy life without that constant stress of managing a complex asset.
Like having a trusted partner who understands the ins and outs of industrial real estate and is dedicated to protecting the owner's investment.
They handle the challenges so the owner doesn't have to. They're constantly monitoring the market, staying up to date on regulations, and anticipating potential issues before they become big problems.
This deep dive has really opened my eyes to the crucial role that property managers play in this world.
It's fascinating, isn't it?
They're the behind-the-scenes experts who keep things running smoothly and ensure that these vital spaces continue to thrive.
It's a demanding but rewarding profession.
Yeah.
And as we've seen, it requires a really unique blend of skills knowledge and a genuine passion for this industry.
Well said. We've covered so much ground today, but there's always more to learn.
Always.
And before we wrap up, we want to make sure we've answered all your questions and address any concerns you might have about managing your own industrial property.
Of course.
So let's take a moment to recap those key takeaways from our deep dive and offer some final thoughts on what the future holds for this dynamic field. Stay with us. Welcome back to the deep dive. As we wrap up our exploration of industrial property management, I'm really struck by the sheer scope of it all.
It really is a fascinating field, isn't it?
We've just scratched the surface, but it's clear that there's so much more to it than meets the eye.
And with technology evolving at such a rapid pace, I think we're going to see even more exciting developments in the years to come.
Oh, absolutely. Remember that idea we talked about earlier, managing an entire industrial space from your phone?
Yeah, that's becoming more and more of a reality.
I mean, the possibilities are pretty mind-blowing.
And it's not just about convenience, it's about efficiency and data-driven decision-making.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One thing that really stood out to me is the potential for data analytics to really transform the way these properties are managed.
I think that's a huge area of growth.
Imagine having real-time insights into everything from energy consumption to tenant activity patterns.
It would revolutionize the industry.
It would be like having a crystal ball, allowing property managers to anticipate problems, optimize operations, and really maximize the value of those properties.
And as those technologies become more sophisticated and accessible, we can expect to see even greater efficiencies and cost savings for property owners.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what would you say is the key takeaway for our listeners who might be considering venturing into the world of industrial property ownership?
I think the overarching message is this professional property management isn't just a luxury, it's a strategic investment.
It's about peace of mind, knowing your asset is in capable hands.
It's about leveraging that expertise to navigate those complexities, mitigate risks, and really unlock the full potential of your industrial property.
We've explored the multifaceted role of the property manager, from tenant whisperer and financial guru to maintenance maven and legal eagle.
And we've delved into the increasing importance of sustainability and the transformative power of technology.
And I think we've successfully debunked that myth that industrial property management is just about collecting rent checks and fixing leaky roofs.
It's a dynamic, evolving field that demands a unique blend of skills, knowledge, and that forward-thinking approach.
So whether you're a seasoned investor or just starting out, remember that professional property management can be that key to success in this exciting world of industrial real estate.
Absolutely. Now, as we conclude this deep dive, we want to leave you with a few thought-provoking questions to consider.
Okay, like
What innovations will shape the future of industrial spaces?
how will technology further revolutionize the role of the property manager?
And most importantly, how can you, as a property owner, leverage these trends to maximize the value of your investment?
We encourage you to continue exploring these questions and stay tuned for more deep dives into the ever-evolving world of real estate and beyond.
Thanks for joining us.
It's been a pleasure exploring this topic with you.
Likewise.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in to The Deep Dive. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to Commercial Property Deep Dive by Eureka Business Group. We hope you enjoyed today's insights. Don't forget to subscribe for more expert tips and real stories to help you navigate the world of commercial property management. Until next time, keep thriving.